First, I just wanted to say thank you all for joining us today. Um, I hope you find this useful. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular training is because I know that a lot of schools are either going into a hybrid model or they're still on a fully virtual model. And this is one of those tools that most people have access to. So we're going to talk about a lot of different ways that we can use Google Forms and to engage students not only in their virtual environments, but also when they come back to classrooms, we can still continue to use Google Forms in different ways to assist them with their individual learning needs, group learning, and to give ourselves a good check, as you'll see, on what students are actually learning while they're with us. So we're going to cover a lot of things today and tomorrow. Um, if you do have a question to ask, absolutely please ask it. One of the traps that folks often have when they're giving sessions is that they tend to assume too much. So if I'm saying things that or using terminology that you're not familiar with, absolutely please feel free to stop me and ask the questions or ask me to go back. I'd be happy to do that. This is, after all, for you, not for me. So if I'm not addressing your individual needs, please make sure that you stop me and so that I will do that. Um, but first of all, let's just kind of jump right into forms. Now, I have my handy dandy smartphone right in front of me. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I sent you all a handout with several pages of QR codes. Now, there's also links on there. So when we look at different forms today, you have two ways to access them. You can simply get them with your cell phone camera and it should access, or your tablet camera, it should access the forms automatically, or you can click on the links that were also provided for each of them. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my whole screen with you so that we're all looking at the same thing. But first of all, I just wanted to say welcome. I hope you find this useful. I think we're going to have a lot of fun over the next today and tomorrow. So let's get started. All right, let me first start by sharing my entire screen. Okay, there we go. The first thing I would like for us to do is let's actually jump into our first form just right off the bat before we start talking about creating them and modifying them and doing all of those things to them and using them. Let's actually do this to learn a little bit about you. Now, there were two folks that actually used the first form sometime prior. And I've just deleted those responses because I'd like to see where we are now and something about you at this time. So I'm going to do this with my phone up, and it already popped up. And let's go ahead and just jump right into the first form, either by using the QR code or the link that I sent you. I will also put the link in the chat box. So you'll have two ways to get to it. But let's go ahead and use our first link. I'll copy it from here and I will drop it in the chat box as well. Which means I need to unshare my screen apparently because my chat box is not coming up, although it might be buried. So let me just drop that in there. Form 1, and there's the link. Okay, go ahead and take a moment. Please access the first form. Like I said, either with your tablet or phone, or by clicking on the link. You've got the link in the handout, and you have the link also in the chat box. All right, and I've got my responses list up. If you have difficulty accessing it, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask me. And what I'm showing here is the responses as they come in. Good, thank you, Catherine. Okay, we've got 2. Thank you, Amy. Good, Abigail. Thank you. Kelly, great. Ella, excuse me. And if you're not able to access the form, certainly unmute yourself, speak up, and let me know.
I cannot access the form. This is Linda.
Okay, Linda. Can you access the chat box?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I did put the link in
So
there.
just click on the link there?
Yes.
Okay.
Although, you know what, that might not be the, nope, you know what, I think I goofed. I put the wrong link in there. So let me give you
because that took me completely away.
Right, yeah, let's fix that. So apologies for that.
No problem.
All right, that should be it now. It starts off https forms.gle and so forth. Now you do need to make sure that you're logged into a Google account in order to access the forms. And if you're not,
I logged in from my Gmail account, so that should work, right?
I believe so. It should work, yes.
Okay, let me try.
Okay. All right, so far we've got up 6, good. Seven, great, thank you. Just waiting for a few more. 8, fantastic. We're just about there. 3 more is what we're looking for. 9, great. Good, Linda. I see you're able to access it.
Thank you for your help.
Sure, not a problem. 2 more. If there's more folks that cannot access it, please let me know. Or choose not to. I suppose that may be the case.
Okay, Leah? Leah, did I tell you that last week of the 9 weeks, you have to be on the Google Meet? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have your test. Yeah.
Okay, well let's go ahead and with the 9 responses, let's see who folks are so far. I'll put that over there. All right, how well do you think you understand Google Forms now? Looks like folks are clustered around 2 and 3, which is kind of on the lower end, and 1 for 4. Now, obviously, by the end of these 2 days, it'd be great to see everybody up in the 4s and 5s. But let's take a look at what can you do at this time. Create a new form. We have, these are the maybes. 3, can do it with time. 5, create a new form. Easy. Great. 1 person. Customize. Nope. Little help. 4 people, 2 people. Create multiple questions times maybe with help. Well, that's why we're here. Can do it with time. It's easy. Question logic. No idea what you're even talking about. Okay, that's great. We've got 1 that can't do it, maybe with some help. 1 who can do it with time. Create quizzes. Again, no clue. Well, we're gonna be doing all of these things over these next day or so. So I think we're gonna answer a lot of questions. Create multiple types. Do it with time. 1 thinks it's easy. Great. Let me just scroll across. Question logic. No idea. So clustering on the low end, create quizzes, review and analyze, maybe with help, 6 people, all right, and adding images or videos. Now, you'll probably right away get an idea of what I'm doing here. One of the things that I want to know is what are your specific needs? But the really great thing about asking that question through Google Forms, I can immediately see where folks are and how they're responding. And as you'll notice, it's updating itself even as you are responding. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but we have a lot of kids either at home or in our classrooms, and we want to do a check-in on the content. Where are you right now with the content? How are you feeling right now? How are things going? What questions might you have for me, your teacher? And we want that information immediately. And I think probably other students like to see what are their classmates, how they're responding as well. So this gets automatically and dynamically updated. So as soon as responses are answered by a student or by yourself in this case, we can see just how people are responding. So let's see, questions to answer, creating quizzes, best uses, organizing data. We're going to do that. What is forms? You're going to get that answer over and over again. Adding images and documents, forms for multiple teachers, but not receive responses from other students, and using forms through Schoology. Okay, videos and starting a form. Great. And then we got email addresses down there. All right, you know what? I think this is going to be good because these are the things that we're going to do. However, I will mention, full disclosure here, we're not going to be talking about Schoology. I'd make a fool out of myself, basically, if I try to address that question. I'm not comfortable with Schoology. Seen it used, I would not consider myself in any way to be an expert with that. So all of these other ones we're going to be addressing, except that one. So full disclosure. All righty. And, oh, we had 10 out of 11. Okay, that's good. All right, so that was our very first form. And as you can see, not only am I using this to understand what questions that you have, but it also makes a pretty handy dandy attendance form, which is one of the ways I'll be using it. Instead of having to say, all right, kids, here's my list of papers. Is this person here? Is this person here? And go through that. Why not just have them basically provide their own attendance record and at the same time provide some meaningful information that you need to know as the teacher. So lots and lots of good uses for this very simple type of form. Now, this is my summary here, but at the same time, I can also look at how do people answer individual questions, and for each person, how did they respond. But for our purposes, looking at this as a summary is perfect for our needs. So that was actually our very first Google form and the first use of it. When we talk about engaging students, instead of having students basically just listen to us from the very beginning of our classes, let's actually have them right away participate in something that we need to know as teachers, which is what do you know, how are you doing, and are you here? Okay, so that is the very first one. But I want to take some time initially and just talk about how do we set up Google Forms and how do we set up the different question types? Because as we see from the responses, that's a question that a lot of folks have. How do you actually build these things, right? So let's take some time, build a form together, and then I've got lots and lots of examples for you on different ways that we can use the forms that we create. And not only what do we use them for, but what do they look like? How do we actually create them? So I think I'll hide chat for now, and let's create a form. So I'm going to jump over to my Google Drive, and I'm going to hide, I think I'll hide the chat box for now. Alrighty. So when you access your Google account, you know you have access to Google Drive. Even if you just have the Gmail account, you have access to Google Drive. I've got a shortcut on my web browser that takes me straight to the login page for Google Drive, but it's simply just drive.google.com. All right, and when you're there, you have this lovely button up at the top, which is new. Now, if this is old news for some folks, I apologize, but I just want to make sure that we don't leave anybody out like, hey, all these things are neat, but how in the world do you do it? So I'm going to take the first little bit of time here and just walk through actually from beginning to end, soup to nuts, how do you build a form? All right, so we're going to come over here to new, and then we see Google Forms. Now, if you don't see Google Forms, you might need to go to the More button, and then it should show up there. We're going to start from a blank form. Just start from scratch. All right. Item will have same sharing permission. Sure, that's fine. Create and share. And here we are at our very first beginning of our Google form. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to title the form. I always do that right away. Frankly, sometimes things go wonky, computer shut down, something happens. So I want to make sure that I'm going to title it right away so I can easily get back to it later. And I'm just going to call this our first sample form. Now, that is the title that will show up on the form itself. When I share it and ask people to take it, that's what they're going to see. But in the upper left-hand corner, it still says untitled form. We haven't actually given a title to the file in Google Drive. There's two things we can do there. We can click on it and type something in there, or my recommendation is title it on the form itself like I just did here, because if I do that, as soon as I click on untitled form at the top, it automatically takes the name that I've entered and puts it in the file name. So now in my Google Drive, I will have something called our first sample form, which is this right here. All righty. So if you would, there it is right there, our first sample form. And that primarily is the reason why I recommend that we first title it on the top of the form, because then we can use it to create the file name. Very simple like that. All righty. So let's build it. So we've got this obviously very blank form at this point. So there's a couple things that we want to do. First thing that we're going to want to do is describe what is this form for. If somebody goes here and is going to take it, what are they supposed to do? What's it about, basically? And right here at the top of the page, we have a place where we can enter some information. This is our sample for demonstrating how to create new forms. All righty. And we have our first question ready to go. So what are the various types of questions that we can add to these various forms? Well, the most obvious types are long answer and short answer. But every new form is going to start off with something called untitled question, and it's going to give us a radio button for choosing option 1. But I don't want that kind. I want to talk about long and short questions, just like we had on our introduction form. Please put in your name. It's a short answer type. So over here, where you see multiple choice, if I click on that, I can pull up the list of all the different types of questions that are available to me. So let's add a short answer and let's add a paragraph. Now, what's the difference? A short answer question only allows the person to fill in up to 1 line of text. A paragraph will allow them to enter multiple lines of text. So I've chosen short answer, and the user can put in just a single line. This is a short answer question. Hoorah. Okay. So let me show you what that looks like then. One of the things that I do, just because I'm always insecure about how things look, I did I do it right? Up here on the top of my screen, there's a little eyeball, and it's called preview. When I do this, what it's actually going to do is just show me the form that we have created. So I'm always flipping back to preview just to see, does it look like I want it to look? So let's take a look at our preview. And there's the actual form that we've created. There is the question prompt. And here is the place for, this is my short answer. There is the place for the student to enter an answer to a short question and a submit button. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just simply close this tab. The form is still up, so I actually don't need this. And I will leave that. I'll close that one also. All righty, so that's the short answer question. Now, how do we add another question? Well, very simply, you'll see over here are all of our, no, it's not going to let me do that. All of our commands. And the very top one with the plus is add a question. Now, anytime you add a question, it will add the question after whatever box is activated. So if I'm up here editing the title and I say add a question, it will put the new question immediately after that. If I am down here on our question, this is a short answer question, and I'm editing that, when I hit the plus button, it will put the next question below that. Now, if we get things out of order, not a problem, because we can move these questions around later. So let's go ahead and add a question. And there's my next question. This is a long answer question. Write a lot. Okay. And you'll see below that then is the place where the, oh, I chose short answer. Huh. That's the wrong one. So I can simply click back over here on the question types, and I can choose the correct one, a paragraph. So even after you create the questions, it's very simple to go back and change the question types. We can click right on the question. We can change any of the items there, or we can choose a new type of question if we don't have the question type that we want. So we wanted a paragraph. And that looks like this. So here's our short answer, right? I'm just typing, and you see it's only going to be 1 line. But here, I can actually put in returns, and I can type paragraphs and paragraphs. On the short answer, all right, come on, Bowman, type. If I hit my enter button to create another line, nothing happens. I only get 1 line for a short answer. But for a long answer, I can have as many lines as I want. All right, so that's long and short answers. Let's leave that and go back to our budding form. Then, now let's take a look at questions where we have pre-selected the responses. So obviously with short answer and long answer, kids will write whatever they're going to write. But in many cases, we want to pre-select. Is it option A, B, C, or D? So let's start by creating a multiple choice question. So I'm going to add my next question, and it's multiple choice. Which ice cream do you like best? And if the answer is not chocolate, I'll just tell you you're wrong. All right, so we'll say chocolate. And really after that, we probably don't need to say anything. All right, vanilla. Strawberry. And I hope nobody ever chooses that because that's nasty. All right, so here we are pre-selecting the options. And because it's a multiple choice with the little radio button, the circle button, the student will only be able to choose one answer out of those. But sometimes we say, you know what, maybe we want to give them a chance to fill in their own response that we haven't thought of. So we have something called add option or add other. Now, if we just click in this pecan, we click on add option, we add another option. But if we click on add other, our option is called other. And if the student chooses that, then they'll have the opportunity to fill in whatever they want to fill in. So let's see what that looks like. Let me go back up here to my preview button. Click on that. So notice with multiple choice, if they can choose one. If they change their answer, the previous answer is deselected. You can only choose one. But if they choose other, then we can put in gravy or whatever. They can put in their own option over there. So that's how the multiple choice works. Now, sometimes though, instead of multiple choice, we can only choose one. We want to allow them to choose multiple options. And this is where it starts to get a little bit trickier. So let's try that next. All right. Let me close this, leave. So let's come down here and create another question. So there's our next blank. And for this type of question, let's use checkboxes. Why is ice cream better than spinach? And we can put in lots of them. More nutritious. We can put in tastes better. We can put in because spinach is yucky. Okay. And I'll go ahead and put in the add other button. So now with, by the way, spinach is better than ice cream. So now with that type, with check boxes, here the student can choose multiple options. So remember, with multiple choice, they get one. But with check boxes, they can do multiple responses. So that's the difference between those two. All right. So let's zip on down here a bit more. But before I forget, I do want to say I've got this blown up on a big screen. If you're having a hard time seeing it, let me know and I can actually blow it up a bit more. All right, let's add another question. So let me come down to my question controls, which are now not showing up. Oh, they're at the bottom. There we go. Plus. All right. The next type of common question is a drop-down box. So this is a sample drop down box. All right. So here's our drop down. A drop down box works exactly like the multiple choice option, but instead of listing all the options and having buttons by them, it will put them in a little menu that pops down. Let me show you. So, so this will be about the best ice cream flavor. All right, so we've got chocolate, we've got vanilla, and a little pro tip for you, a little handy dandy pro tip. Instead of moving my cursor and clicking on add option, which is kind of a nuisance because I have to keep moving from my keyboard to my mouse, I can just hit the enter key and it will automatically go down to create a new option for me. Strawberry, yucky. All right, enter pecan. Okay. However, the biggest difference between multiple choice and drop down boxes is with drop down boxes, students will not be able to enter their own response. With multiple choice, there is the one where they can say other and they can put in their own response. With the drop down box, it's just what it is. Oh, okay, this was a planned error. I wanted my sample drop down box to be the last question, but if you'll notice, it's actually in the wrong place. Well, not to worry. Here at the top of my question window, there are 6 little dots right smack in the middle. And if I click on that, I can drag this question into its appropriate place. And now it's at the bottom. So like I mentioned, if for some reason the questions are in the wrong order or you want them to be reordered, you can just simply click on that little box there and drag them up or down until they're in the correct place. All right, so let's see how the drop-down box works. And it should be the bottom. There it is. So you'll see it's just like the multiple choice. We've given them options. They can choose one and only one. The big, it does two. Why would you do this? One reason is maybe you don't want another, but it does save a lot of space on the page. Instead of having all the options list down, you just have one item here and they can click on it and then all the options are revealed. But other than that, they're pretty much exactly the same. Okay. So those are our primary question types and how they work. But there are a few fancy types also, which can be very useful. And actually, on the introduction form that you used, I used some of those fancy types. So let's talk about them. But before we do that, let's pretty up this page a little bit. Let's make it a bit more organized so it's easier for the user to navigate through them. At the top of our form, we've got the title. And what that actually is the title of the first section. And the way to think about sections is pages. So we might have some, here's page 1 with some questions, and here's page 2 with some questions. Each of these pages is a separate section. So let's say I want this page to only be about the common question types, and I want the next page to be about the fancy types. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a title to this. Now, up here where it says first sample form, that's automatically going to be displayed at the top of the page. But I can also put in titles throughout the pages, kind of like headings on a page. So if I use my little control box over here, there's one that has 2 T's, add title and description. So I'm going to activate the section heading at the top, and then when I click on my T's to add a title, Right below that, I have a chance to put in titles. Here are some common question types. And I can put in a little more description if I wanted to do that. So section headings, that's like the heading on your page. Titles are internal headings throughout the page. And it's going to look like this. So here's our section heading up at the top. And then here is like a subheading, a title that we have included. So why might this be useful? Well, maybe you want all of the pages to have the same title across the top, so you make all the section headings the same. But in order to clarify, you might use a title for that. For example, let me go ahead and get rid of that title. And I'll be honest with you, I sort of pre-planned all of these just so I can show you the various features. There's actually, believe it or not, a logic to this. So here we've got this title. Let's get rid of it. Over here, we've got a little trash can icon. And we can use that to delete whatever's in that field. In this case, it's the title. So I'll click on that, and now it's gone. Let's say I want the title instead to say long and short answers. And maybe I'll put a title down here. I want a title before the ice cream question on pre-selected answers. So I'm going to click on the previous question and then hit my title. Because remember, anytime we add something new, it's going to go next after the selected item. So first I'm going to select that item, and then I'm going to add my title. Some pre-planned answer type questions. So let's see how this looks. Preview. So here's our title, long and short answers. And then down here is another title, some pre-planned question, answer type questions. So that's how titles work. All right, let's get rid of this. Okay, so now we've done all of the common types. So let's now create a new section, a new page, which has the fancy types. So in order to create a new section, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the previous item. And then you will see over here these two little boxes. And that is to add a section break, or for all practical purposes, add a new page of questions. So let's do that. And now we've got section 2 of 2, untitled section. And I'm going to just say fancy question types. And I'll make a little descriptions. These are lots of fun, and they are very, very handy. All right. So let's create a fancy type. So one of the types of questions we used in that first form that you all took was called a linear question. So let me add a new question, and I want to make this a linear scale. So this is, rate yourself on 1 to 5 or whatever the case may be. It's what it actually is. It's called a Likert type scale. So let's change it to that. And we used how much do you enjoy ice cream? And I don't know why I'm on an ice cream kick today, but I am. Now, the only labels that we can put in are the starting point and the ending point. So what does a 1 represent? Hate it with a passion. Okay. And the top. Now, I'm not going to fill in the top just yet because I want to change this a little bit. So here it comes up, a linear scale comes up with a 1 to 5. But I can simply click on that 5 and I can change it to anything that I want. So let's make it 1 to, actually let's make it 1 to 6. An even number, so there's no middle point for the undecided people. It keeps me alive. Okay, so that's with the linear scale, how it works. And let's take a look at it. So here's our page 1 over here, and we go through all these questions. And now, because we have more than one section, we have a button at the bottom that says Next. When we click on it, it takes us to the next page of questions, the next session. How much do you enjoy it? It keeps me alive. And then I can submit or go back from that point. So that's linear scales. And let me leave that. All right. Let's add another fancy type. So after this one, we are going to click the plus button and multiple choice grid. So multiple choice, again, means you have pre-selected the answers and they can only choose one. But here, they can choose answers on various rows. For example, we can say, how easy is it to eat ice? Now we can do it like this. Let's see. Name your favorite colors. All right, row 1. Let's call this now. So rows, those are going to be the labels down the side. They're going to be on the y-axis. So red, blue, green, and yellow. All right. So that's the labels down the side. Now, what are the options that they can choose from? And those are going to be our column headers. So here, love, indifferent, hate. All right. So what we're doing is we have to set up two sets of parameters. We've got our rows, which are individual items, and then going across the rows, we can respond to each of them. So how does it look? So let's skip to the bottom of this. Let's go right to page 2. And that's what that matrix looks like. So here we've got our individual items, and we can choose one per. Now notice, because these are multiple choices across, if I choose a different one, my first option is erase. So if I chose love, I said, you know what, actually I hate red. So I choose that, the first one goes away and hate shows up. I can only choose one. Blue, love it. Green, love it. Yellow, I couldn't care less. All right. So that's what that type of a grid looks like. But you actually have some options. So that's the standard way it works. Okay, the standard way. But we can require students to put an answer in each row. So down here, we've got something that says require a response in each row. They must answer each of those different rows. I click on that to turn it on. We can also do some other things. We can say, all right, you have to have something in every row, but you may only choose one response in each column. So they can't choose 2 loves, 2 indifference, 2 hates, whatever the case may be. So when I click on limit to 1 response per column, which is now checked, now when I look at it, let me just jump there. So here we are. Now when I look at it, I have to put something in every row, right? Obviously, this is going to be a problem because I can only put 1 per column. So for example, I've got love for red. It's not going to let me choose love for blue also. It's going to give me an error, and for green and for yellow. I only get to do 1 per column, which is kind of nice because think about it. If you say, all right, here are these different topics here. How well do you understand them? What is the one you understand the most? What's the one that you sort of understand? And what's the one you are completely clueless about? Well, you can only have one most. So you only want one response in that particular column. You can only have one that you understand the least, so you can only have one in that column. So in a case like that, you would want to say, you would want to restrict the student to only one per column. And we did that by clicking on our options over here, which is these three little buttons, and we chose limit to one response per column. So we can either turn it on with the check marks, or we can click it again to turn it off. And actually in this case, since I only have three options, I'm only going to put on 3 rows. Let me take off yellow right here. And quite simply, I just click the little X and yellow is gone. And so those are our major types right there. Now, I do have one caution, and this is because I have made this mistake a lot of times. If I go to delete this, so you know what? I don't actually need a new section. If I delete this, I'm going to lose not only the section heading, but I'm going to lose all of the questions in that section. Like that title plus everything inside of it is going to go away, which might not be what I want to do. So the first thing we want to do is, if we want to delete a section heading but keep everything, what we want to do is not delete the section. We want to merge it with the previous question. If we delete the section, we're going to lose the section title and all the questions in the section. And then we go, oh, what have I just done, right? And you have to remake it. If we say merge with above, it's going to take all of those questions and move them into the previous section. So if all you want to get rid of is, you don't want a page break of a new title, but you want the questions, then choose merge with above and not delete section. Now, if you have multiple sections, you can also move it. You can duplicate it, which will just repeat the section heading and all the questions in there. Whew. So we've got a lot of questions on this page. And frankly, it's getting a little bit complicated to look at all these. I'm adding questions to section 2 right now. So every time I do that, I'm having to scroll past all of section 1, and it's kind of a nuisance. But fortunately, we can make this easier on ourselves. Right here, you've got a little up-down arrows. If I click on that, all it's going to do is take that whole section and just compress it. Watch this. Doop. For that question. Can we do it for these other ones? No. But the title we can do it with. So that it makes it a little easier. But you'll notice all the questions are still there, but all of the response options are compressed. So like, which ice cream do you like best? We get all the options there. If I compress it by pressing the little up-down arrow here, the questions are still there, but all of the response options are hidden away. That makes it easier for me to see where I am in my form, what question I'm on, and skip past things that I don't need to worry about. Okay, so it makes it a little bit easier. So that's the basic setup right there. Now there are a couple of less used, but one of the things we can use forms for is for students to submit their work. They're at home and they've responded to some questions, they've written some things, they've provided their answers and so forth, and you say, all right, on your Microsoft Word or Google Docs, type this thing up, write a story for me, and then send it to me. You can actually have students submit files to you through this, whether it's PowerPoint or a Word doc or a picture file, and you're going to see that as we look at some of the examples later, how to submit files like that. So let's take a look at those. So let's add another section just briefly, And we're going to call this the super fancy question types. All right. And we'll hit my plus button. Let's hit the plus button. For our file type, we have something called file upload. And you can use this type of a question for students to submit their work to you. And what will happen is when they submit your work in your Google Drive, you will have a little folder which says responses to your form. And all the files that students submit to you will be in that folder. So let's choose that. Okay. Let respondents, students, upload files to Drive. They'll be uploaded to your Drive. Now, they have to be signed into Google when they do this, but it kind of makes sense because if they're doing your form, they have to be signed in. All right. Only share the form with people you trust. And the reason is they're going to be putting files into your Drive. So you want to make sure that you're not getting weird stuff from random people. So we've read all that. Now we say continue. And we can say submit a picture of your project. So one of the things that is difficult to do, especially in a virtual environment, is how do we get kids to work on projects and then submit them? So we want them to create something, build a Lego model of a pyramid, use straws to create an image of a water molecule, whatever the case may be. Well, how do you submit that? In a classroom, you just walk around from table to table and you go, hey, that's great, looks nice, or the kids bring it up to you. But if they're at home, it becomes very difficult. What they can do is take a picture of it and then submit it. So maybe your form is about the water cycle, right? And you've had some questions and you've asked them to describe the water cycle and why it's useful to know. And they've written some things, they've answered some questions, and you say, okay, draw me a picture of the water cycle so I know that you understand how it works. Well, how do they get that to you? They take a picture of it. They can submit the picture using a file upload question. Now you can choose some options. What kinds of files? So right now it's going to take anything, but we can turn this option on and choose the file type. I want it to be an image and only an image, or I want it to be a document. So you can choose what they're allowed to upload. And if they try to upload something else, they're not going to be able to do that. How many files can they submit at once? 1, 5, or 10. Let's just say 1 here. Maximum file size, I think you can leave the default for this in most cases, especially if we're talking about kids in school. They're probably not going to be creating files that are a gigabyte. Now, you could ask for a video. Go outside with your tablet or your smartphone, if you've got one, and make a video of birds creating a nest. Well, that might be a pretty big file, even if it's a short video. But if it's a document, spreadsheet, image, presentation, 10 megabytes is probably going to be quite sufficient. The point, though, is you have the opportunity to limit or to restrict. So for submitting work to you through a form, this is a very nice way to do it. And you can do this in class also. You've got kids working in all their workstations. Instead of saying, okay, kids, draw this picture and put it in my box and I will read them later. Then you have to file them somewhere, or put them in a portfolio, or stick them in a folder or in a filing cabinet. Well, why not just have them snap off a picture on their phone or their tablet, and then just simply upload it into the form. Now you already have an electronic copy of it, and they can take their picture or whatever it is, take it home, stick it on their refrigerator. So it really simplifies the collection of paper products and other types of media that they might be submitting to you. and you've got them all in one folder. So let's see. Over here in my Google Forms, there should be a folder. Okay, so as soon as, it's not there now, as soon as somebody submits, automatically Google Drive is going to create a folder with those documents inside of it. Okay, so that's pretty neat. And what else do we want to do? Now, a couple of folks asked in the introductory, how do I put a picture on here? It's pretty simple. So let's do let's do that two ways. So first, I can just say on my little menu over here, add question, import questions from another form, add title, we've done that. I could just simply say add image. And it says, all right, find me the image. Now, if it's on my computer, I can just take it and here we go. I can just drag it right in there and it uploads and there's my picture right inside of my form. That's the Goliath bird eater, by the way, the world's largest spider, because I'm sure you wanted to see that. All right, so there's another way. So we could say, hey, here's a picture. Write down all the things that you see. I'm going to put a long answer after this, and I'm going to say, describe the different parts. Describe the different body parts. Now, and paragraph. So I can just take an image and load it into my page if I want to have multiple questions about it. I'm going to ask for short answers and long answers, and I got some multiple choices and things like that. And they're all about that one picture. So I'm going to just use my add image button over here to just put the picture in there, and then I'm going to ask questions. But sometimes you want to ask just one question. So you can actually include an image into a question. So let me add a question, and we're going to make this a short answer just to be easy. And you'll notice, so here is a question with an image. And right next to my title, I've got a little button. I think what it's supposed to be, it's like a picture frame with mountains. I think that's what it's supposed to indicate. So if I click on that, now I can choose. I can import from my camera. I can put in a web link. I can get it off my drive, my photo library. I'll, just for the sake of ease, I will go ahead and drag it from my computer onto there. Now, here's my question prompt. Here is my image about that question and say, and down here, what do I want them to answer? And I can change the question type. So instead of, here is a question, short answer, I can say multiple choice type about this picture. This is a picture of a dog, apple, cupcake, pizza. And what is this picture? With a question mark. Now, let's see how that looks, and that's going to do all of our setup. Whew. Preview. Let's skip past all of these. Let's go to the next page. We have one which is required because they have to answer each row. Next. Submit a picture. That's where they add the file. Here is a picture just on the page. We're going to ask some questions. Or here is a question about this picture. So that's how we do that. And I think we're not going to do it now because I'll get too distracted. You do the exact same thing with a video. You can choose videos off of YouTube, which is the easiest way. You can search for them and add them in here, and it works exactly the same. Let's see, what else do I want to say about that? One last thing. This is a huge picture and it takes up a lot of space on the screen. We can actually modify it. If I click on the picture, you see it's now selected. It has some handles in the corners and it's got a little blue frame around it. I'm just going to click on this handle down here and I'm going to change the size just to kind of tidy things up a little bit like that. So you've got a lot of controls. And I even have some options. If I click on my little menu icon next to it, my little 3 dots, where do I want it? I want it on the left side. I want it on the center. I want it on the right side. And you can move it around just to make the form the way you want to. I can change the picture. I can remove it. I can add a caption. All right. So I'll leave it in the center. Whew. Those are all the question types. Now, I did see, however, that a couple of folks said, how do I kind of design it to make it look nicer? How do I format it? So I'm going to do that briefly, and then let's go do another form. All right. So we've been using the preview button up here on the top of the screen, but right next to it is something. It's supposed to be the shape of a little artist palette. You know, you hold it in your hand and you got paints all over it. Customize theme. I click on that. I can choose an image to put across the top. I can choose a theme color to change the overall coloration, but let's choose image. Now I can add my own. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to bother you or to interrupt you, but there is some questions in the chat.
All right, I will. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will go right to them in a moment. So you can upload your own picture, or you can choose one that is already available to you. And I click insert, and there it is. So now at the top of my form, there's my picture. All right. So let me take a look at chat. Thank you. Can more than one person use the form? If they do, does the data go to just one place or could it go to different places? Can more than one person use it? And I think if you mean like if I create this form, can another teacher use the same form? I mean, obviously, a lot of people can use it to fill in stuff, but can multiple teachers do it? And the answer to the question is yes, because you can share files. So for example, here's our first sample form. Let me blow this up a little bit. I can click share, and I can share this with somebody else. Then, if they go to their shared with me folder over here, they're going to see it in their Google Drive as well. And the way I believe it works then is they will get just their responses. So that's the way to test it out. But that's how it would work right there. Share. Okay, and the other question was on cropping pictures. Actually, that's a good question. Let's find out. So if I click on that, we know that I can change the size of it. Do I have a crop option? And the answer to the question is no. I'm trying to think, is that actually true? How would you do that? No, I don't think you can crop it here within your Google Forms, but if you have the picture saved on your computer, you've downloaded some stuff from the internet or wherever the case may be, I think your best option is probably just to pull up the picture and just use whatever you use to manipulate your photos, and then upload it to your form. But it looks like within Google Forms itself, that's not possible. Wowzers. All right, we've actually done an awful lot. Let's see, did I get everything? Okay, looks like it. All right. We've done a ton of stuff, but that's pretty much everything about setting up your forms. Now, we are going to talk about quizzes and how to do logic. Like if you answer this, then you go to this. If you answer that, then you go. We will do those as well. These are all of the tools, though, that we use to build the forms. All right. So we have done pictures, section breaks. We've done moving items, duplicating. If you really like that question, you can duplicate it. Like you want to use it again, or you want all the options again, you just hit duplicate. Now you've got two of them. So I think that's pretty intuitive. So, woof. For the sake of time, I think we've already talked about the first form for attendance and for sort of checking in on the content. So let's not spend any more time on that.
There's a question about the theme and how to go get it.
How do you edit the theme? Okay, so here again, customize theme. It's our little button at the top, very top. It looks like the artist palette. Everything you're going to do with the layout and the theme, this is where you do it here. Theme options. You can add a header image. Let's take that one off, and we can choose a new image, either selecting a category, uploading our own, or choosing from our Google photo library. So that just goes across the top, and then we hit insert. You don't really have a whole lot of controls here. So you have control over the picture at the top. And that's actually a nice one. You have some controls over the color of the questions and the text, like this. And you can just choose one if you want to choose your own. You have some control over the background color. So those are right there. And really the only other control that you have is what kind of a font do you have. So you don't really have a lot of options. Basic, decorative, I strongly recommend you never use that one because it's difficult to read, especially if somebody is on a small device. But formal and playful. Those are your only options. Where'd you go? Can you show it again? Okay, so Deborah, did I answer your question? And great. Okay. And I'll admit, I get caught up in what I'm doing, so I don't always see the little thing that says, hey, we've got chat. So absolutely feel free to just turn on your microphone, jump in and say, Mr. Bowman, would you please take a moment and go look at the chat? I'm happy to do that for you. I just get caught up. I get kind of excited. All right. So let's take a look at a pre-create a form that has these. All right. Let's take a look at another form. Let's just get out of here. Let's take a look at form number 2. Different ways that we can use Google Forms to do different types of assignments. So there is the QR code if you want to hit it with your tablet or your smartphone. And I will put the link in the chat box in a moment. And just as a quick tip, I've done this in sessions, live sessions, where on my PowerPoint slide or through my projector or on my smart board, I just project the QR codes and people sitting there participating just pull up their items and just go get it. So it's kind of handy for when you're actually presenting to a class or to embed into documents like, hey, now for this part of the unit, go here, and they can go there. My only caution, though, is that you also provide a link because not everybody's got the smart device. So take a look at that one, and then we'll play with it a bit. And the link to it, I will put in the chat box. Chat. which should be showing up somewhere. I think I buried it. Where did I put the chat box? Apparently I'm hiding my chat box. Probably underneath everything. There it is. Okay. All right. So it's in the chat box now if you need to access it that way. Otherwise, from here. One hint, though, when I've projected on computer screens, sometimes the phones or the tablets don't pick it up, so you kind of have to go in and out slowly, just kind of in and out and in and out until it picks it up. But it should do it. All right, so what are we looking at with this one? And I think I'm just going to walk through these kind of quickly. If you want to go ahead and fill it out, you can, obviously. But I really want, before we finish today, I want to take a look at quizzes. Now, obviously, we spent a lot of time on how to do all the setup, and I spent a little more time on that because I saw in your initial responses that there are a lot of questions about how do you do all these different types and how do they work. So I did want to spend a bit more time. It does mean we have to compress a few other things, though, including this one that we're going to look at. So let me go back to my drive and let me go get the second form, which is right there, number 2. So let's talk about some of the different ways. And we've kind of been doing this all along anyway. So let me just show you some things. Now, I do strongly recommend, if you're going to use Google Forms for any type of an assignment, make sure that your very first question is, what is your name? Because at some point, if a student is submitting information to you, you need to know who it's from. So I know that sounds sort of obvious, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. So first question, what's your name? Now, different types of questions. Let's just take a look at it. Different types of questions. So we've got our name here, and my name is now Bob because it's simple to spell. All right. So here we're having a unit on astronomy. So maybe the first thing I want them to do is define the terminology for me. I could have a multiple choice that says which of these is the definition, but here I want to see if the students can sort of pull out of their heads and recall what it is that we talked about. Or if I sent them off to watch some videos or look up some information, I first want to know, what is it that we're talking about? Alignment of 2 or more celestial objects. Syzygy. All right. So here you see I've actually put in a question, and I'm going to have I put in a picture, and I'm going to have some questions about it. So first, look at this picture. So a student looks at the picture. All right. Now I'm going to have some questions. What does this depict? And I've got some options for them. Well, in this case, it's syzygy. Although it does show these other items, what we're looking at with the alignment is that. Why did you choose it? The sun, moon, and earth are lined up. Okay, extra section. And do I want them to create their own representation? Use some common objects around your house that depict this concept, because I want to see if they can recreate it, right? And we want them to do as much as possible, not just keep on answering questions, but I want them to demonstrate their understanding. So how do I get them to submit that to me? That's where I'm going to use this type of question and add file. use common objects, represent it, take a picture, and upload it. And turns out I've got a picture somewhere. Right there. That's not the right one. Poison ice cream, home syzygy. And I will simply upload the file and click upload. And off it goes. Next question. All right, and I'll go back in a moment and I'll show you where that file just went to. So that's kind of a science lesson there, an astronomy lesson. But another very useful way to use Google Forms is reading reports. You know, we often have kids write a little essay, answer some questions about a book, give some feedback, and then we've got the stack of papers and we've got to flip through them and mark on them and put them somewhere. Well, we can just simply kind of automate most of that by doing it through a Google form. What's the name of the book? The name of the book is Burns. I'm going to misspell this. Bears Go to Town. Okay, who's the author? And I'm not going to try to spell that again. How much did you read, right? Maybe over the course of a couple of weeks, we're going to read through the whole book. So we want to have an idea of how far have kids gotten, so we can just simply ask them how many they've done. 10 pages. All right. Did you like it? See, now here is our linear scale. So we're integrating a lot of different kinds of questions based on what it is that we're trying to find out. We could say, in one line, tell me, what did you think of it, right? But really all we want to know is, are they enjoying it? So let's just ask them, on this scale, where are you? And that is a perfect place to use one of those linear scale questions. We don't need a lot of explanation. We just want to spot check, what's your overall impression? So we can use a linear scale. Now, here is one of those matrices. What do you think about the following characteristics? All right, let's rate it. You are now the reviewer of this book. Was it interesting? First of all, yeah, I thought it was great. Visualization, were you able to understand and sort of make a picture of what it was about? Yeah, pretty good. Reading level, how was it? How did you find the reading level? The words were too big for me. Did the author provide good descriptions? So. So this gives a chance to kind of apply a rubric to their assignments. And this type of a question is exceptional for rubrics. And would you read another one? Yes. Now write a short review, no more than 600 characters. So this is one way we can use Google Forms to automate that whole process of reading reports and book reports. So let's take a look at another one. All right, in this one, I've added a video. This is actually an example of a social emotional lesson. And if you've never seen this video, it's on YouTube and it's great. And we're not going to watch the whole thing. Okay, so they can watch a video. The only warning I would give about videos is YouTube will typically at the end of a video say, hey, here are some other videos or related videos. You might want to make sure it's not pulling up something which is inappropriate, to say the least. Okay, so they can watch a video, just like we did with the picture, and then we can have them answer some questions. So this is a sort of a social emotional topic lesson here. Why couldn't they figure it out? What are some ways? And you'll see that most of these are long or short answers.
Instead of accessing a YouTube video, could you insert an MP4?
If it's in your Google Drive, I believe you can do that. I believe you can. But I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't tried. I've always just pulled them off of YouTube. I did look that up, though. And you know what? I think the answer to the question is no. I think it's got to be off of YouTube. But let me just, let's find out just very super quickly. This will just take one moment. I don't think so. Let's check that. Create it. Okay. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply change, that's fine. Let's add a video and let's see what our options are. Our options are YouTube. We can put in the YouTube URL here, the address, or we can search YouTube. So those are our only options, which I think is kind of unfortunate because sometimes we have really great videos or we want to have more control over what the student sees at the end. But you're going to get YouTube. And in some schools and in some places, YouTube is restricted. So that may limit your ability to use that one. Did that answer the question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, it's a shortcoming, quite honestly. It's unfortunate, but Google owns YouTube, so I'm sure they're trying to push YouTube on our students. All right, so next. What about a math lesson? Well, we can ask the question and we can have them just simply type in their answer. Now we do have some options for what we call verification. Let me show you what that means. And this is most useful when you want to restrict the types of information students can put into a short answer. All right, so another sample. All right, type, we're going to make this short answer. Now, over here on our little menu, we've got our three little dots at the bottom corner over there. We can do something called response validation, which means when they enter in their information, there's going to be some checking in the background. Have they submitted the right type of information? So if I click on that, I can say, what do I want them to submit? Number, text, it has to be a certain length, or just regular typing. So I can say a number. The number has to be greater than something, less than or equal to, or so on like that. Or we can just say it's a number. It must be a number. Now, if they try to submit something which is not a number or not what's required, we can just say, whoops, you must type in a number. Try again. This is very useful. I think it's most useful for mathematics. We say, type in the number, and if they type N-I-N-E instead of the number 9, then it's going to say, hey, you got to actually put in the number. Because when all of this gets recorded and we're looking at it, then we can start doing some calculations. We can run some formulas. We can look at it very quickly, or whatever we want to do at that point. The point is we have some control over what type of information we want them to put in. So for this sample, put in your answer. If I type in 10, it's going to give me my error message. Whoops, you must type in a number, try again. Oh, okay, there we go. And the number 10 is fine. Once again, the place we got to that, over here, on our little menu where we have our three little buttons, we have something called response validation. And then we can choose what type of entry, and we can choose some parameters, like maybe we want an email address. So we can say text, it must be an email address. It doesn't contain some words, or it must contain some words. So we have some controls over the inputs. And let's just get rid of that. Okay. And I am looking at the clock. So short answers. Now, one nifty thing is we can have students use Google Forms for taking notes during class. You want to know, what are they picking out, right? What are they getting from your lesson? What keywords and key concepts are they remembering? So you can actually use a form for them to take their notes on. Or you can have them, in this case, simply repeat what I said. Here is the definition of syzygy. The alignment of 3 or more celestial bodies. And they would put in an alignment of 3 or more celestial bodies. All right, I've given my description. Now you write to me, put it in your own words. Draw pictures, interesting things. So this is all stuff that they can do during the presentation of material. We've been talking about planets. Tell me what's most interesting to you about Venus. All right, well, it rotates backwards. That's pretty interesting, okay? During the presentation, keep a running record. Keep typing. After the presentation, then hit the submit button. So they can use this as a running record, which then you can print off, or you can just give the answers to them, or you just find out what it is they got from you. Which one of these? Questions with skip logic. You know what? We have 3 minutes left. So those are some very common examples, but now we're going to start moving, well, actually tomorrow, we're going to start moving into quizzes and something called skip logic. The quick definition is skip logic means if they respond in a particular way, they should then skip to a particular question. Maybe they don't go to the next question, yes or no. I want them to go to this point or to that point. And that way you can sort of create a path through the questions. If they got it wrong, maybe you want to go to a follow-up question. So you will skip to the follow-up question. That we will set up tomorrow. So when we are here 2:30 tomorrow, we're going to talk about quizzes. We're going to talk about skip logic. We're not going to go through all the rebuilding again, so it's going to move much faster. I will assure you of that. Close test, and then we're going to take a look at what do you actually get from the students. They do all these forms and then they hit submit. What does it look like to you, and what are some things that you can do with it? We'll talk about how to create the spreadsheets, how to pull up the response summaries, and some ways that we can manipulate the information that we get back. So this, my friends, has been a race of an hour and a half, and I'm actually looking at my clock on my computer. I'm a little surprised that it's already 3:58. So thank you all, and 2:30 tomorrow, we're going to start getting into what I think is where all of this becomes really powerful for not just getting information from students, but helping to teach them information. And then what do we do after they hit the submit buttons? So quick last look, anything in the chat box that I need to see? My chat box is buried again, but any last questions in our last minute that you'd like for me to answer at this point? Okay, not hearing any. Come with questions tomorrow. If there's anything at the beginning of tomorrow you want me to go back over, hey, Mr. Bowman, can you show us that thing again? Feel free to ask that. I'll take all those questions at the beginning, and then we'll start talking about some of the meat and potatoes of Google Forms. So thank you all very much. I hope you're finding this useful so far, and I will see you all tomorrow.